Do you know what lies beneath the floor of your home right now? Not the foundations, not the pipes. Something else, someone deliberately buried in the ground. Something working against you every second of every day for months, or perhaps years. Does your home feel heavy? Because when you return, instead of feeling peace, you feel a weight, a sense of oppression, as if the air inside is thicker than it is outside. Do arguments break out in your household for no reason? You and your spouse love each other, yet the moment you are together in that house, conflicts arise out of nowhere, or perhaps your children, usually calm and obedient, become aggressive and uncontrollable as soon as they are home. Despite your prayers, your fasting, and your faith, does nothing change within those walls? If this is your situation, this video will reveal the reason why. My name is Ousmane, I am 34 years old, and for 12 years, I worked as a fetish priest in Senegal. My specialty was unearthing curses buried in the ground beneath homes, not on the surface, but deep in the soil, 30 or sometimes 50 centimeters down, where no one looks or suspects anything. These buried curses worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, against the families living unknowingly above them. Today, I will reveal 4 specific locations in your home where sorcerers bury these curses, 4 strategic points that every fetish priest knows by heart, 4 zones where the earth is most receptive and where curses grow the fastest. I will explain exactly how these curses are prepared, how and at what depth they are buried, and most importantly the symptoms they cause in the lives of the families living above them. But the 4th place, the one I'm saving for last, is the most dangerous and insidious of all, because it poisons everything your family consumes daily without you even realizing it. If this video resonates with you, please hit like now so other families can be warned. But before we get to those 4 places, let me tell you how a young man from Dakar became a specialist in burying curses. I grew up in Pikin, a suburb of Dakar, a bustling, lively working-class neighborhood where everyone knew everyone else. My father was a fisherman at Zimbedian. He would head out to sea every morning before sunrise and return in the afternoon with fish to sell right there on the spot. My mother would take some of that fish, dry it, and resell it at the Casta markets. It was a modest life, but honest. There were 5 of us children, and I was the 3rd. I was an average student, not brilliant, but not bad either. I dreamed of becoming an accountant, wearing a suit, and working in an air-conditioned office. But when I failed my high school exit exam for the 2nd time at 18, everything in my mind fell apart. There was no money for private tutoring or a private school, no diploma, and no visible future. My parents had nothing to offer me, and all around me on the streets of Beijing I saw boys my age with cars, state-of-the-art phones, and designer clothes, boys who hadn't gone to college and didn't have any visible jobs. When I asked my friend Abba how he managed, how he had money despite having no diploma or job, he looked at me with a smile and said, "You want to know? You really want to know? Come with me." Abba took me to Casamance. It was a 3-day journey by car and dugout canoe. Deep in a dense forest near Big Nonu, a forest where even the villagers dared not venture, he introduced me to an old man, someone everyone in the region simply called the Old Man. No one knew his real name or his age. He lived alone in a hut in the heart of the forest, surrounded by dozens of fetishes hanging from the trees. He rarely spoke, but when he did, every word carried immense weight. The old man studied me for a long time in silence. He walked around me, touched my hands, and looked deep into my eyes. Then, in a deep voice, he declared, "This one has the earth in his blood, he will work with the earth." That was my verdict. My destiny in the shadows had been sealed. My initiation lasted 40 days in that Casamance forest, cut off from the outside world. 40 days of rituals, sacrifices, and learning. Days spent eating only what the forest provided, nights spent sleeping on the bare ground. The old man taught me the power of the earth. He told me, the earth is alive, Ousmane. It receives, it preserves, it multiplies. Whatever you bury in the soil, the earth nourishes. If you bury a seed, the earth turns it into a tree. If you bury a blessing, the earth makes it grow. And if you bury a curse, the earth makes that grow, too. That was the fundamental principle of my art. The earth is a spiritual amplifier. It takes what you give it and multiplies it 100-fold, 1,000-fold. And for 12 years, I used this power to destroy entire families by burying curses beneath their own homes. Now, listen carefully. The first place witch doctors bury curses is beneath the front doorstep. And there is a specific spiritual reason for this. In the unseen realm, your home's front door is not merely a physical opening, it is the mouth of your household. Everything that enters your life passes through that door. Blessings enter through the door. Prosperity enters through the door. Health enters through the door. Good news, opportunities, benevolent people, everything passes through that door. And when a witch doctor buries a curse beneath that threshold, he installs a filter, an invisible filter that blocks everything good and lets everything bad pass through. The blessings God sends to your home reach your door and are blocked. They can't get in, they leave. But problems, illnesses, conflicts, bad news, they pass through freely. Here's exactly how I did it. A client would come to me, a jealous neighbor, a business rival, a family member. They would say, I want this family blocked, I want nothing to work in their house. I would prepare what we called a packet. A small package made of black cloth containing specific powders, clouded waters, plant elements, and words written on paper in a special ink. Preparing this package took 3 nights of ritual. Then the client, or I, would go to the target's house. Always at night, between 1 and 4 in the morning, we would bury this package under the threshold of the doorway, about 30 centimeters deep, right under the feet of every person who entered or left that house. And from that moment on, every time a family member crossed that threshold, they unknowingly activated the curse. Entering, they brought trouble. Leaving, they left blessings behind. The house became a trap where all evil entered and all good left. I remember a family in Tis, the Diallos, a couple with 4 children. The father, Mohammed Diallo, was a prosperous merchant. He owned 3 shops in the central market of Tis. His wife, Awa, was a midwife at the regional hospital. They were a blessed family. Everyone respected and admired them. But Mohammed's younger brother couldn't stand his success. He tried to contact help through a taxi driver who knew about my services. He told me, my brother has everything. I have nothing. I want his luck to change. I prepared the package, and one night I took it and buried it under their doorstep. The effects began in less than 2 weeks. Mohammed's first shop was burglarized. The police never found the thieves. The second shop suffered an inexplicable electrical fire. The third lost its best suppliers overnight. Meanwhile, Awa, the midwife, was accused of committing medical malpractice and suspended from the hospital while the investigation was conducted. Their children, who had been among the top students in their school, suddenly plummeted in the rankings, and the couple, who had never argued, began to fall apart. Violent arguments erupted every night, about nothing, about everything. A sour glass became a war. A misunderstood word became a tragedy. In just a few months, this blessed family, envied by everyone, was living in total chaos. Mohammed no longer slept at home on certain days. Nights. Hawa had lost 8 kilograms from stress and grief, and their 4 children lived in constant terror of hearing their parents shout at each other. She was born at 20 years old in R, unable to eat. The youngest, 20 years old, started wetting the bed again, and every morning, every evening, as they crossed their own threshold, they unknowingly activated the curse that Jay had planted beneath their feet. And this family is just one case, one among dozens. When God freed me, what struck me first wasn't even guilt. It was anger at myself, anger at having had the power to destroy entire families and using it for money, for banknotes. And I realized that knowing where curses are interested is important. That's the first step. But it's not enough, because once the curse is in the ground, it takes root like a tree. You can cut the branches, you can even cut the trunk. But if the root is in the ground, the tree keeps growing back. I myself had to go through a process after my deliverance, taking days to uproot every curse I had planted in my own life. Because the fetish priest who plants something in others' soil is unknowingly planting in his own soil as well. And the very techniques used to block the doors of houses were also used to destroy marriages, block fertility, cause sickness, and ruin businesses. It is all connected. People from Senegal, Mali, Guinea, Cameroon, and Ivory Coast write to me every week saying they are experiencing exactly what I describe. The link is in the description. Now, let's move on to the second location. And this one is even more strategic than the doorway. If you have felt a heaviness in your home, if blessings have stopped coming and everything that used to work has been collapsing since you moved in, I invite you to take part in a powerful act right now. Write in the comments, "In the name of Jesus, I uproot every curse buried in the soil of my home, and I cleanse every inch of my land from the works of darkness." Do not skip this step. Participating in a public declaration is powerful. When you name the curse and break it alongside other believers, you are waging spiritual warfare. And I can tell you from experience that when hundreds of believers participate and proclaim victory together, curses are broken. So participate now. Write, "In the name of Jesus, I uproot every curse buried in the soil of my home, and I cleanse every inch of my land from the works of darkness." The second place where fetish priests bury curses is at the four corners of the plot, not just the house, but the entire plot of land. And here is why it is strategic. When you bury a curse under the doorway, you block entry. But when you bury curses at the four corners of a property, you create a spiritual prison. You trap the entire family within a cursed perimeter. Nothing good can grow inside that boundary. No project can succeed. No prayer can rise high enough to pierce the spiritual ceiling created by those four corners. It is as if an invisible lid were placed over the house. Prayers rise, only to strike the lid and fall back down. Blessings descend from the heavens but are deflected before they can reach the land. This technique required four identical bundles, each buried at a corner of the property, functioning together as a system. If one was removed, the other three would compensate. All four had to be neutralized simultaneously for the prison to be broken. It is a technique I learned directly from an elder in Casamance, one that very few fetish priests master. I once used it on a family in St. Louis, a civil servant, his wife, a teacher, and their 3 children. They were a Christian couple who prayed fervently every day. However, the wife's mother did not approve of the marriage. She felt her daughter had married beneath her station. Elam had him come to their home one night. He walked the perimeter of the plot under the cover of darkness and buried a package at each of the north, south, and west corners. 4 identical packages, prepared over 4 nights of ritual, 4 anchors of a curse planted at the 4 extremities of the land. And within 3 months, this Christian couple who used to pray together every morning at 5 a.m., read the Bible together every evening, and raise their children in the faith stopped speaking to one another. The husband slept in the living room. The wife wept alone in the bedroom every night. The children suffered nightmares every night, nightmares in which they were pursued by shadows inside a house with neither doors nor windows. A prison. It was the exact image of what he had created around their property. The civil servant was forcibly transferred to a remote region hundreds of kilometers from St. Louis, a transfer no one understood and no one had requested. The family was physically separated, and the wife, left alone with the 3 children in that prison-like house, began to sink into a deep sadness that doctors diagnosed as clinical depression. They prescribed antidepressants. She took them religiously, yet nothing changed. Because this was not a chemical depression. It was a spiritual prison, its 4 walls formed by the objects planted at the 4 corners of her land, 30 centimeters beneath the surface. The third location is the one that touches the very heart of the couple, the center of their intimacy, the foundation of the family, beneath the marital bed. It is the most intimate zone of the entire house. the place where the couple reunites after the day is done. The place where masks fall away. The place of physical and emotional intimacy. The place where children are conceived. The place where secrets are shared in the darkness, the place where the couple is most vulnerable because they are most open. And that is precisely why fetish priests target it with surgical precision. When you bury a curse beneath the marital bed, you directly attack 3 fundamental pillars of the family. The first pillar is the couple's unity, the love between the spouses, the mutual desire, the tenderness, the bond, and the emotional connection that leads a man and a woman to choose to stay together. The curse under the bed erodes this bond night after night, slowly, imperceptibly, until the spouses look at each other and feel nothing anymore. The second pillar is fertility, the couple's ability to conceive, carry a pregnancy to term, and bring healthy children into the world. The curse under the bed creates a spiritual wall between the spouses that prevents conception. And even when conception does occur, the pregnancy comes under attack, leading to repeated, unexplained miscarriages or difficult childbirths. The third pillar is the spiritual protection of the home. In the spiritual realm, when a couple is united in prayer, love, and intimacy, they create an invisible shield round their house, a shield that the forces of darkness cannot easily penetrate. But when the curse under the bed divides the couple, that shield shatters, and the entire house becomes an open target for all manner of other attacks. To carry out this technique, I needed access to the master bedroom, and that is the most insidious part of the process. How does one enter the most private room in the house? Through domestic workers. This is the most common method in Senegal and throughout West Africa. Wealthy families often employ a maid to clean, do the laundry, and tidy the rooms, and some of these maids are strategically placed by fetish priests. Sometimes they know exactly what they are doing, other times, they are completely innocent. They are given a small pouch wrapped in white cloth and told, "Hide this under your employer's bed." It is meant to protect them and bring them good luck. And the maid complies. She slips the pouch under the mattress or bed base and never speaks of it again. Sometimes, I was the one who went in when the family was away during a vacation, a trip, or a family event like a wedding or a baptism. While the whole family was out celebrating, Mogi would be in their bedroom, planting destruction beneath their bed. I remember a case in Ziginka that deeply affected me and still haunts me to this day. A young couple married for only 2 years, Musa and Faith were as in love as the day they met, united and close. They had built their little house together, brick by brick. They wanted a child more than anything in the world, it was their shared dream. But the first wife of Musa's father, the woman the father had repudiated years earlier to marry Musa's mother, could not bear to see her ex-husband's offspring happy and prosperous. Her hatred was 20 years old, and she decided to unleash it upon the young couple. She made contact through an intermediary in Ziginka and arranged a curse that combined infertility and the marital discord into a single package. Through a distant cousin who was visiting the couple for a family celebration, she had the package buried beneath their marital bed while Musa and Fate were in the living room entertaining guests. Within a few weeks, the first signs appeared. The bond between the spouses began to wither. Musa would come home from work and, instead of greeting his wife with joy, he felt an inexplicable irritation. He wanted to be alone. Fate felt rejected and abandoned. She would weep silently at night, wondering what she had done wrong as attempt after attempt to conceive failed. They went to the doctor for a full examination. Everything was physiologically normal, a normal sperm analysis, a normal pelvic ultrasound. On paper, everything was perfect. Yet in that bed, directly above the buried curse, nothing could happen. An invisible spiritual wall separated them every night. And this brings me to the fourth location, the one I save for last because it is the most vicious, the most invisible, and the most destructive of all. The kitchen is where the family is nourished. When a fetish priest buries a curse in the kitchen or near the hearth, he spiritually contaminates everything the family prepares and consumes in that area. Every meal cooked in that kitchen, every glass of water drunk in that house, and every piece of fruit eaten at that table carries the burden of the curse. Consequently, the entire family unknowingly consumes spiritually contaminated food every day. The effects are manifold and devastating: chronic illnesses that defy treatment, persistent digestive issues, sudden allergies appearing out of nowhere, post-meal fatigue as if the food were draining the body rather than nourishing it, and, above all, progressive mental confusion. In the spiritual realm, contaminated food attacks not only the body but also the mind, discernment, and the ability to make sound decisions. The family gradually loses its clarity of thought without even realizing it. They make absurd decisions, trust the wrong people, reject those who wish to help them, and fail to understand why their judgment has become so impaired. I once applied this technique to a large family in Kerala, 8 people living under the same roof: the grandfather, the grandmother, their son, his wife, and 4 grandchildren. The son, a man who had settled in France, was jealous because he was the youngest child, the one who had stayed back home, receiving all the attention, care, and love from the parents. The son in France felt forgotten. Instead of resolving this conflict within the family, he chose destruction. He maintained contact by phone from Paris and sent money via Western Union transfers. The price of this destruction was a family of 8 people. I buried the curse beneath the kitchen hearth of the family home one night while the family was fast asleep, and its effects struck all 8 of them. The grandfather, once in excellent health, began to suffer from inexplicable joint pain. The grandmother developed digestive problems that baffled the doctors. The youngest son became irritable and aggressive. He lost 2 jobs in 3 months due to bad behavior. His wife suffered 2 consecutive miscarriages, and the 4 grandchildren acted normally yet wasted away as if they weren't being fed at all. Doctors spoke of malnutrition, even though the children were eating 3 meals a day. Food entered their bodies, but the curse beneath the kitchen was siphoning off all the nutritional value into the spiritual realm. These children were physically fed but spiritually starved. Their grandmother took them to the doctor every week. The doctor prescribed vitamins, dietary supplements, and fortified milk. Nothing changed. The children continued to lose weight. Every evening, the grandmother would weep, saying, "Oh God, why are my grandchildren dying before my eyes when I feed them every day?" She did not know that the answer lay beneath her feet in the floor of her own kitchen, 30 centimeters under the hearth where she lovingly prepared every meal. And here is what you must understand. What I am about to tell you now is perhaps the reality. These 4 locations do not operate independently. An experienced fetish priest, as I was for 12 years, does not simply bury a curse in a single spot. It creates a system, a comprehensive mechanism of underground destruction, a gateway to block blessings and filter everything entering the home, a setup at the 4 corners to imprison the family within a cursed perimeter and form a spiritual ceiling that prevents prayers from ascending, the marital bed to drive a wedge between the couple and shatter the family's spiritual shield, and the kitchen to poison everyone from within through their daily meals. When all 4 systems are in place simultaneously, the family lives in a house that has become an automated engine of destruction. Every room, every moment of the day, every meal, every night's sleep, every entry and exit through the door, and every prayer uttered on bended knee triggers a different curse. Yet, the inhabitants have absolutely no idea what is happening beneath their feet. They walk upon their own curse every day. They sleep atop their own destruction every night. They consume their own poison at every meal, and they pray beneath a ceiling that deflects their prayers back toward the ground, and the consequences do not cease simply because you move house. This is a crucial point that many people fail to understand. If you leave a house where curses have been buried, those curses remain active in the ground for the next occupants who move in after you. Innocent people moving into that house unknowingly inherit your curses. And you are not safe in your new home either, because the spiritual doors opened in your life, the bonds created by the curses and the access established during the months or years you lived above those buried packages, all of that follows you. The curse lies in the ground, but it also resides in your mind, your destiny, and your family lineage. You could move 100 times, change cities or countries, or go to Europe or America. Those open doors travel with you. Furthermore, if your parents lived in a house where curses were buried, the doors opened in their lives were automatically passed on to yours without any additional rituals or new pacts. It is an invisible spiritual inheritance. You are experiencing the same financial blockages your father faced. The inability to keep a job. The inability to build anything lasting. You face the same marital problems, family conflicts, and inexplicable illnesses. This is not hereditary bad luck, it is not a genetic issue. It is a curse planted in the soil of a house perhaps decades ago that continues to bear poisonous fruit in your life and the lives of your children today. If you do not uproot it, your own children will pass it on to theirs, continuing the cycle from generation to generation. For 12 years, I planted curses in the ground of houses in Senegal and beyond its borders. I had regular clients in Dakar, Thiès, St. Louis, Kaolack, Ziguinchor, and Tambacounda. Even Senegalese people from the diaspora, men and women settled in France, Italy, Spain, and America would contact me by phone, asking me to go and bury things on the properties of their rivals or enemies back home. They paid via Western Union or MoneyGram, and I would carry out the work remotely. Some clients were loyal, they would return year after year with new targets. One man kept me working for him for 6 consecutive years. Each year, there was a new family to destroy, a new house to poison, a new patch of ground to desecrate. And I did it all without the slightest hesitation. As a professional in the business of destruction, I made a very good living. I had a beautiful apartment in Almadies, the most upscale neighborhood in Dakar. I had an ocean view, a brand new car, and designer clothes imported from Europe. I frequented the city's most expensive restaurants. Everyone thought I was a prosperous businessman, an importer or a consultant. No one in my immediate circle suspected the truth. No one knew that my wealth, my good life, and my beautiful oceanfront apartment were built upon the ruins of dozens of families. That every banknote in my wallet represented a poisoned home, a destroyed couple, sick children, a ruined business, or a life shattered beyond repair. I had everything money could buy, yet I had lost something that all the money in the world could not replace, inner peace, restful sleep, and the ability to look people in the eye without shame. Then, one evening, everything changed. I was in Touba on a job. Touba, the holy city, the city of Sheikh Ahmed Bamba. A client had asked me to bury a curse around the home of a rival, a religious marabout who was his competitor, just another job like hundreds of others. But that night, as I knelt in the darkness digging the earth near that house, I felt something I had never experienced in my 12 years in the trade. It was a form of resistance, not physical resistance. The ground was digging up normally, and my shovel entered the soil without issue. But in the spiritual realm, something was pushing me back. Something more powerful than anything I had ever encountered. And then I heard a voice, not the voice of the spirits I had known intimately for 12 years. It was a different voice, deeper, more ancient, more powerful. A voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The voice said, "Ousmane, how much soil have you poisoned? How many families have you destroyed with your own hands? Do you think the earth does not remember what you plant in it?" My hands trembled uncontrollably, and for the first time in my life, I was afraid of the earth, the very earth I handled every week, the earth in which I planted destruction. The earth I thought I had mastered was speaking to me, or rather, God was speaking to me through his own creation. I returned to Dakar that night without finishing the mission. For the first time in 12 years, I abandoned a job mid-task. And in the days that followed, something terrifying began. I started vomiting earth, not figuratively, not metaphorically, but literally. Soil poured from my mouth, dust, sand, small pebbles, as if all the earth I had defiled for 12 years, all the earth where I had planted curses, was rebelling and forcing its way out of my body. It started one morning when I woke up. I coughed, and soil came out of my mouth. I thought it was a dream, but it was real. The sand was real, the dust was real, and it wouldn't stop. Several times a day, I suffered violent coughing fits followed by earth spewing from my throat. I was terrified, a fear unlike anything I had ever known. I, who had manipulated spirits for 12 years, I, who feared nothing in the invisible world, I was afraid like a child. I called Ibu, my friend, the one who had introduced me to this world years ago. He told me, "It's normal, Osman. Sometimes this happens when the earth rejects the fetish priest. Take this preparation, make that sacrifice." But nothing worked. Earth kept pouring out of me, and the spirits that had accompanied me since my initiation in Casamance were beginning to turn against me. The nightmares became unbearable. Night after night, I would dream of drowning in the earth, of the ground opening up beneath my feet to swallow me alive, and of the hands of the families I had destroyed reaching up from the soil to grab my ankles and drag me underground. I stopped sleeping and eating. I was wasting away before everyone's eyes. It was my mother who saved me, my old mother from Pekin, the one who had sold dried fish at the markets for 30 years. The one who prayed for her 5 children every morning and every evening without ever missing a day. She didn't know what I had become. She didn't know where my money, my cars, and my apartment came from. She thought her son had succeeded in business. One day, she called me. She said, in a trembling voice, "Osman, I don't know what you're doing, but last night God showed me something in a dream. He showed me that you are in danger, terrible danger. Come home, my son. Come now." I went to her house. When I entered my mother's small room, that modest space with its small bed, wooden wardrobe, and prayer images hanging on the wall, I collapsed to my knees and wept as I hadn't wept since I was 11, when my father died. I wept for 12 years of darkness, pouring it all out, every detail of the 40 days in Casamance, the old man, the bundles, the midnight burials, the families of witches, the dialogues with Musa and Fate from Zaganka, the Ndep ritual in Kaolack, everything. My mother didn't scream or cry, her eyes were filled with the love I didn't deserve. She held my head against her chest just as she had when I was little. And she spoke a single sentence, "God is greater than anything you have done, my son." Then she began to pray. She prayed for 3 days and 3 nights, almost without stopping. Her Christian neighbors from Pekin joined her. They prayed in shifts. When one stopped, another took over. Gradually, the vomiting of soil ceased, the nightmares subsided, and the voices in my head fell silent one by one. A pastor from a small church in Pekin, a simple man seeking neither fame nor money, came to pray for me for weeks. And link by link, door by door, root by root, those 12 years of darkness were uprooted from my life. Completely for good. Today, I am free, completely free. I no longer have the apartment in Les Almadies, the new car, or the designer clothes. I live modestly with my mother in Pin, in the small house where I have grown. I sleep on a mattress on the floor in my childhood bedroom, and it is the best sleep of my life because, for the first time in 12 years, I sleep without nightmares. I wake up without dirt in my mouth. I walk on the floor without feeling the curses of others beneath my feet. I am poor in the eyes of the world but rich in the only thing that matters, peace with God and with my conscience. And I bear this heavy yet necessary responsibility to speak the truth to those suffering in silence within their homes, unable to understand why. If your home feels heavy as if it were thicker on the inside than on the outside, if problems never cease within your walls, despite your prayers and fasting, if your relationship is deteriorating for no apparent reason even though you love each other, if your children suffer from illnesses doctors cannot diagnose, if your food no longer nourishes you, if you feel imprisoned in your own home, as if the walls were closing in on you day by day, then look beneath your feet. The answer may lie there in the ground, 30 centimeters below your shoes, planted by someone who knows you, someone you trust. Someone who smiles when they see you while knowing what lies dormant beneath your home. It is not your fault. God has not forgotten you. It is not a lack of faith or prayer. It is a curse buried by an enemy who paid for your destruction. Yet, no matter how deeply rooted that curse may be, it can be uprooted. Every root can be torn out. Every patch of ground can be purified. Every home can once again become a place of peace and blessing. Share this video with those you love, your family, your neighbors, and your fellow church members. Every person warned represents a family potentially saved. And subscribe to this channel, because in the next video, I will reveal how sorcerers use your own photos and social media posts to attack you remotely. What I am about to share will completely transform your relationship with the internet and social media forever.